This is day one of project G82 M4 and we've just received the ECU back from Femto in Finland. We are going to be fitting the ECU back into the car and we'll be taking the car to the workshop for further work. Now that we have put the ECU back in the car, let's fire the engine and see if it starts. In case the engine doesn't crank, that means the ECU connections that we have put back into the car are not proper. Now that we have confirmed that the ECU is plugged in correctly, let's take the car back to the workshop and begin the work on this car. So we are headed from Darshan's house to the workshop, and for those of you who haven't met Darshan, that is him right here. So apart from this M4, Darshan has a really nice collection of cars, starting with the Stage 3 M340i, which is also incidentally the fastest M340i in India right now. We were just discussing how the rear seats of the M4 can actually, take in two average size adults without any issues at all. Getting in and out of the car might be a little cumbersome because at the end of the day, it's still a two-door coupe sports sedan. But once you get in the back seat, it's actually quite comfortable even for a long journey. So the other thing we're really impressed with the M4 is how supple and nice the suspension is in comfort mode. We go through a lot of bad roads on our way to the workshop, and honestly so far we have not scraped at any of the speed breakers, nor have we fallen into ditches, which was a cause of concern for us driving the car to the workshop. So this is going to be a two-part series, and in today's episode we are going to be putting the stock G82 M4 onto the dyno to get the stock baseline numbers. Once we have the baseline numbers, we are going to be installing the Bootmod3 Stage 1 OTS tune, and then we'll remeasure the car on the dyno to see what difference it makes. Once the flashing of the Stage 1 OTS tune is done, we are going to be installing an MST intake onto the car and see if it makes any difference on the OTS tune. So now that we have the stock baseline numbers for the M4, we're going to start flashing the Stage 1 95 on OTS tune by Bootmod3. So as you guys can see, flashing of the Stage 1 OTS tune from the Bootmod platform is very simple and a very quick process as well. It needs about 8 to 10 seconds to flash the map. So now we are going to let the car run on the dyno for a while, let the Stage 1 OTS tune adapt for a bit, and then we are going to do a dyno run again. So we finished dyno testing the car on the Stage 1 95 on OTS map. We'll be putting up the figures of the dyno charts in some time. So now what we are going to do is we're going to flash the Stage 1 98 RON tune on the car, and then we're going to dyno the car again and see how much of a difference there is between the 95 RON tunes and the 98 RON tune. Now that we have flashed the 98 RON OTS tune, we are going to run the car on the dyno for a while for the tune to adapt. Otherwise, we will not get the exact power values that the car is supposed to make. So once we are done driving the car for about 3 to 4 kilometers on the dyno, and then we are going to do our first pull. So now that we are done with the testing of the Stage 1 OTS tunes, let's begin with the installing of the MST intake on the car. So now that we're done installing the MST intake, let's proceed to the unboxing and the installation of the Akrapovič Exhaust on the car. So we're done with all the Stage 1 testing on the M4. So now we are going to be putting this Akrapovič full exhaust system on the car, and then we will be flashing the Stage 2 tunes, and let's see what power it makes post the exhaust mods as well. Now that we've shown you guys the unboxing of the Akrapovič, we are going to start removing the stock exhaust from the car and replace it with the Akrapovič. Once the installation is done, we will have to remove these particular panels and then install the canvas splitter that came with the Akrapovič exhaust so that the walls can work according to the modes on the car. So the installation of the exhaust will probably take around 2 to 3 hours, as assembling the Akrapovič catback is going to take time. What is more complicated is basically installing the canvas splitter and all the other electrical fittings that come with the Akrapovič exhaust, and make sure that we don't have any check engine lights or other errors popping up on the dash. The stock catback is actually heavy and requires 2 people to unmount it from the car and put it on the floor. The Akrapovič catback is made of full titanium and is actually very light. Just to demonstrate how light it is, one person can easily carry the catback just like this. So somewhere in the video we'll also be putting up the weight differences between the stock catback and the Akrapovič, just for your information. We've been working on the car since morning and now it's nearly sunset time. We are nearly done with the installation of the Akrapovič exhaust, so let's start the car for the first time since the installation and see how it sounds. So let me take you to the rear of the car and make you guys listen how it sounds from the outside. Hey, why don't one of you guys rev? That is really loud. Initially when we chose the Akrapovič exhaust, we thought it was going to be a lot more supple and subtle and a mature sound, but what we ended up hearing once the installation was done was totally different to what we had expected. This sounds really brutal and quite bassy as well. So now let's take the car out for a spin on the road so that you guys can hear how it sounds on the road. So the Akrapovič exhaust help us save about 21 kgs to the overall weight of the car. At some point we are going to be doing some testing on dragging and see what the car is doing in the current form before we actually go for the custom tune. So we're done with dyno testing the stage 1 and the stage 2 OTS tunes and data logging them as well. What we found very interesting is the stock car made about 506 horsepower and about 644 Nm of torque. On the stage 1 95 RON OTS tune, the car made about 553 horsepower, and on the stage 1 98 RON tune, very interestingly, the car actually lost power up top. We made a peak number of just 543 horsepower. Although the stage 1 98 RON should have made more power and runs more boost up top, due to the high elevation in Bangalore, as well as the fact that the OPF on this car is very restrictive, we actually ended up losing power at the top. So now we are going to look at the stage 2 numbers and see what those do compared to the stage 1 numbers as well. What you guys are seeing on the screen right now is the comparison of the dyno charts between the stock car, the stage 1 95 RON and the stage 2 98 RON tune. The stock car, as we mentioned earlier, made about 506 horsepower and 644 Nm of torque. On the stage 1, which absolutely had no other hardware installed on the car, the 95 RON from Bootmod made 553 horsepower and 717 Nm of torque. Once we installed the MST intake and the entire Akrapovič exhaust, we then flashed the 98 RON tune from Bootmod3 for stage 2, and the car made 587 horsepower and a whooping 784 Nm of torque. We are nearly done with the part 1 of project G82 M4. We've finished installing the MST intake, we've finished installing the Akrapovič exhaust, we've flashed the OTS tunes for stage 1 and stage 2, and we have dyno tested them and data logged them extensively as well. We are waiting on the CSF parts to arrive from USA so that we can start part 2 of this particular build, and then we are going to be flashing a custom tune to see how much power it made after installing all the CSF cooling bits. So in the next episode, you're probably going to see us showcasing Darshan's M340i, which is also incidentally India's fastest M340i, and we probably might showcase Karthik's M340i, which is the fastest stock turbo M340i, to show you the difference between both the cars. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for part 2 on the project G82 M4 coming out very soon.